Hi, welcome to Harrisburg, Illinois. This is my neighborhood. This is where I live. And down below me, you can see the place I went to junior high. My house just happens to be right beside the junior high I went to as a kid, Malin Junior High. And that school was closed down sometime, I don't know, it's been so long, probably around 2002, I think. So it's been closed for about 17 years. Now, what happens when a school is closed and it just sits completely vacant? Well, let's find out. This is what happens. So, I'm going to explore a little bit. Now, this video, the internal parts were recorded maybe about a year ago, and you can't get inside the school now, and I shouldn't have probably went inside then. It was pretty gross, but let's go check it out. Hey guys, what's up? So I'm in the old Malin Junior High gym, and the door's wide open. Anybody could just walk right in. Pretty disgusting to see the way this place looks. This is actually a pretty good wooden floor underneath me. I don't know if there's, hardly any water leaks at all in here. Well, check that out. Stainless steel. Used to play intramural basketball in here when I was in 8th grade. I was pretty good. Yeah. Well, let's walk around and see what all we can find. So how did this happen? Let me try to relate the story to you the best that I know it. So around 2000, 2001, Harrisburg began building a new middle school. This school was deemed too costly to repair. Apparently, there was a problem with the heating system. It was going to be very expensive. And so, since they needed a new heating system, they thought it would be better just to build an entirely new school. Now, this school was actually fairly new. It was one of the much newer than our high school, but they decided a new middle school, a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade school, would be better. So, this school was sold for $7,777. That's the bid that some church put in, so they could start a Christian school. Now, I really wish this had worked out. It's sad that it didn't work out, but the Christian school didn't work out. They maybe peaked at about 30 students, and they had a building designed for maybe 500 or 600, and it wasn't sustainable. They put a lot of energy into like painting stuff on the walls. They like to paint some murals. They got a really nice sign in front of the school, but they never really managed to have any number of students that would keep the school sustainable. So I really have to give them credit though, because they worked really hard. They kept this big old building in pretty good shape, internally and externally. It was in pretty good shape. Now, there was some other uses going on. There were some people that were having like auctions in the building somewhere, and there was also a dance club that got started, like a teen dance club got going called the Old School Club in the library. And, it seemed to draw a decent crowd. So during this time, I was kind of hopeful for the building, but really it didn't seem like things were going well. They still struggled to kind of keep kids out of the building during this time, and there was issues with break-ins, quite a few issues with break-ins, but it would get a lot worse. Eventually, the school, as far as I know, I'm not sure if they abandoned it or gave it away or returned it to the city, or I don't know what they did, but eventually some people bought it, and I'm not even going to try to say their name. They're of East Asian descent, Southeast Asian descent, and maybe Vietnam. I'm not sure, but anyway, these folks had ran a Chinese restaurant in town. This family, and this Chinese restaurant had gone from being a fairly nice place in town when they bought the restaurant to looking like something out of a third world country. There was some weird stuff going on, and this was called Dragon Garden. So they ran Dragon Garden, and it just happened to be a restaurant that was built in a place that floods all the time. So they struggled with constant flooding, and that, I'm sure, didn't work out very well for them. So eventually they abandoned that restaurant, and somehow they managed to buy this school. So it's a family, it's a husband and wife, and two girls. And they moved in. They became my neighbors. They actually, at first, they just used the school as sort of like a base of operations. They were not living here. They were living, I think, back at their restaurant. I'm not really sure, but they were doing some agriculture here. They were always moving in big bags of feed and shipping in water. And they also had bought some land a little ways outside of town, and they were also kind of farming there. And they took the sign in front of the school and and put up Dragon Garden, put their phone number, and said bunnies for sale. And that sign would say bunnies for sale for the next 15 years. For real. So the Dragon Garden family, the husband did not speak English. He was and he really never spoke Chinese because the wife screamed and yelled a lot in Vietnamese or whatever they spoke, and she was always just screaming and yelling at him. Now, she did speak English, and we talked to her some. She seemed like a nice person, but it became a gigantic mess in a very short amount of time. I don't know. Somebody began parking. They parked, some like junk RVs and stuff in the area, which was kind of unsightly. But they just really stopped taking care of it. And I mean, how could a family of two? And by the way, the husband, he had a full-time job at a Chinese restaurant in another town, apparently, and so he was gone for work every day. So they were actually farming inside the building. They were raising rabbits inside the building. Now, there's no way that could be legal. I'm 100% certain there's no way that you could buy a gigantic building in the middle of town and begin raising rabbits in it. But they were. And it was, and I was watching this every day, and it became extremely sad to watch this building just fall apart. And these people were massive pack rats, and they begin to you could just see they're just constantly moving crap into the building all the time. And after a while, it became apparent that they were going to be living here, and they built an apartment. So they started advertising that they were going to create apartments inside the old school and rent out the apartments. Well, also during this time, they were constantly fighting kids, and I guess kids that were coming in and stealing and vandalizing their home. They called this their home, and they were really, really struggling with it. There's about 50 ways, 100 ways, 1,000 ways to get into this building. And kids one day I looked out my window and there's like a bunch of kids running around on the roof. And then one of them like leaps off the roof onto a tree and climbs down the tree. It's like watching a bunch of crazy monkeys or something. And there was just kids constantly going in and out. And then the family would be calling the police all the time. They were chasing around kids. One day I literally watched the man come running out of one of the doors with an axe, chasing a group of kids. And I thought, whoa, this is things are getting weird over here. So the apartment became a gigantic cluster. They could not keep people out of their school, and then they could not keep people out of their apartment. Anytime they would leave, kids were constantly stealing from them. And then I guess she finally got caught. They were selling these rabbits like in St. Louis. They were like, taking a bunch of rabbit meat and selling it at some kind of like street meat market in St. Louis. And I'm not making this up. And they got arrested for that. The police came and they took her away in handcuffs. She was breaking tons and tons of law. They said, you have to stop doing this. Well, apparently shortly after she got out of jail, they kept doing it. And I thought, wow, this is insane. Well, she was eventually, they eventually left. They just kind of disappeared. And and that was probably 3 or 4 years ago, I'd say. I think it's set empty now, completely empty for 3 or 4 years. And without anybody living there, you would think that, that it would become even more inhabited. But in fact, with the family gone, there really wasn't nearly as much fun, I guess, for the kids to break in and mess with it. But they still did, and we still had issues, with kids, breaking windows and trying to get in and out of the building. So over time, somebody got the idea that the city has eventually taken the building over. They own it now, and they had like to get it tore down. They would love to tear this building down, but they can't because it has a lot of asbestos in it. And if they tore down the building with asbestos, everybody in the surrounding area would be breathing in cancerous asbestos particles, and it would be terrible. So, to get the building tore down, they have to have, a environmentally protected system to, stop the dust, I guess, from spreading, and it's going to cost millions and millions of dollars. The federal grant, EPA grant they applied for, was turned down, and I have a feeling that, our EPA could really give a crap about protecting the environment and protecting us from this particular EPA because it's ran by oil and coal lobbyists. So they probably could care less. But I don't know, why this grant wasn't filed. But I doubt that, we're ever going to get any federal money to tear this down. So, in my opinion, as I guess not an optimist, this building is going to be here forever. It's not going to ever be torn down. And it's getting kind of interesting to just slowly watch the land try to take it back over. Several times, one time they took a bunch of prisoners here and they cut down all the trees and stuff growing around it. That was a few years ago. It's all back now. So, like the building, it's pretty much just going to like slowly fall in on itself, I think. But I would say that this place will still probably have, a fairly decent roof on a lot of it, maybe for another 100 years. And the walls could be here for thousands of years, and so I really think this is going to become like ruins or something of, and so what can we learn from all this? Well, this is just a really good example of poor planning. It was, the city, the school district built a new school. They really didn't care what happened to this. It didn't matter to them if it sat vacant. I think there was like thoughts that somebody would buy it and do something with it because, to be honest with you, it was a really nice building. It was in great shape. It would have been a great like community center. It could have been turned into something. It really should have been a school, and they should have just fixed the heater and never built that new one. But anyway, there it is. This is it. And I collected quite a bit of video here when I walked through this place, and I'm just going to let it roll, and this could be an hour-long video. Who knows? So, all right. See ya. come across a pretty excited pigeon. I don't think he likes me in here. I think I better leave. Be great to see nature just take the space back. Just all of us fall down and collapse and be replaced with trees and grass and all that. Well, it's time to get out of here. I'm starting to get a little bit sick. Not really. I mean, not like sick, but the smell is pretty bad. And I feel like I've spent enough time in it. But there you go. Male in junior high. (2018)